in government. Just about everybody knows that. When Democrats began eyeing Kamala Harris as his replacement, Republicans rushed to question her government experience and her competence. Let me remind you, Donald Trump put out the word that she was, quote, too inexperienced. And from there, the headlines came in, Republicans claiming she was not only inexperienced, lacking credentials, unqualified. Some said she was the most unqualified candidate around. You can see the reports hitting the supposed inexperience. The basic MAGA attack here is on experience. And then some of them mix it in with a claim that she was not only inexperienced, but somehow only rising as a kind of inexperienced, unqualified diversity pick. They are empirically wrong. This is false, and I'm going to explain why. But to remind you what we're talking about here is some of what the right has been pushing.
This woman is not qualified or capable of having the nuclear codes.
Has never had a real job in her life.
She's not capable of leading the country.
I think she was a DEI hire.
Completely obsessed with identity over actual competence, experience, or results.
Uncapable and unqualified person to be president.
Unqualified to be our country's commander-in-chief.
She's just not ready.
All right. Those are factual claims. I've told you before, everyone has not only the right, but really the obligation to debate all of our views, opinions, and preferences in the campaign. But those are claims about her experience in government and her qualifications to lead in government. They're about facts, not opinions. And they are all wrong. And they're not only factually wrong, but glaringly so compared to most presidential nominees, and especially compared to recent Republican ones. And so I'm going to show you the facts in our special report right now, because this matters and the facts matter. And this is also a campaign topic, and they are attacking her for it. And you might hear about it at the debate. And if they are attacking her about things that are false, and I've told you about the danger of disinformation and propaganda in our democracy, well, we want to give you the facts. This is something, the kind of report you might want to remember or even share. I'll let you decide that, but let me show you why the voices you just heard are either wrong and ignorant of basic civics, or worse, aware of all that and being deceitful about Harris. The facts show presidential nominees typically have some experience in elected government. In the modern era, you could go to JFK and Reagan. In their first White House runs as nominees, the point that Harris is at now, these are the facts. They each had about 13 and 18 years in elective office. For JFK, Congress. For Reagan, governor, as you see. And voters could see that at the time. That was during their first run for president, and they knew they had that background of experience. It wasn't their whole adult career, it was a slice of it. Now, Obama had less time in national office, and people discussed that in his first run. He was running for president during the first Senate term. He'd also served in state office, so he had about 11 years total. After that, of course, you have Donald Trump, who had 0 years in elected office when he ran. Now, Trump was unusual in so many ways, and that is one where it was known at the time, but he claimed that coming in fresh was a positive. It was good he didn't have experience, he said, and he ran against the swamp, and you could make that argument. That kind of inexperience itself, though, was a first in all of American history. Every other president at the same point in time in this chart, their first run for office as the nominee, had elective or military experience. As one headline put it, Donald Trump is the only president ever with no political or military experience, running the government with no government experience. Those are recent presidents in both parties with pre-White House experience ranging from the unusual 0 to that high of around a decade. So how does Harris compare? Well, here are your facts tonight. Kamala Harris, we'll put this in full, has more experience than all of them by a lot. And I'm going to leave this up for you because you have a lot of different.
Okay, folks, so there you heard it from Ari Melber, right? Journalist, pundit, MSNBC, NBC. This person is one of the most Trump deranged syndrome addicts out there in the, let's just call it punditry world, the so-called journalist world. And he's one of the most, let's just say, despicable, deceitful, ones out there. Now, he's trying to make the case that Republicans are saying that Kamala Harris, has no experience. And then he played you a montage of some Republicans and other people out there saying that she has no experience governing. She shouldn't be in charge of, the commander-in-chief, shouldn't be the person that has, her fingers on the pulse of the nuclear armament. Who are you going to call at 3 o'clock in the morning? Those kind of questions. So what does he do? He brings up something like this. So Kennedy, 13 years, he was in the Senate and the House. Ronald Reagan, he was just a governor for 8 years, doing nothing much but just governing. Obama, 11 years, mostly, I don't know where those 11 years were, because he was only spent about a year and a half in the Senate, and that was it. Was it local, state government? They do a lot of governing there. I don't know. He did say about Trump that that was a once-in-a-lifetime situation where we had somebody that actually had no experience, quote unquote, in the government or no experience as in military affairs. Neither did any of these either in terms of having political experience or experience within the military. But all of a sudden now, Kamala Harris, she's got experience as being an ADA, a district attorney, an attorney general. She is in the Senate and 3.5 years as vice president. And wow, 21 effing years of experience. Here's what Ari Melber doesn't really tell you, folks. What experience is there in actual governing? What experience is there in actually creating a job? What experience in actually carrying out policy that has an economic effect? Now, granted, she did policies or was in terms of, the DA department did come out policies that help people in terms of safety, protection. And I will tell you, the only thing that I can give credit for to Kamala was the fact that she was very, very strong in her sentencing on those people that needed to be sentenced strong. Now, there have been allegations, there have been stories out there that showed that she put, some wrongful men went to jail. She was told they were wrongfully interned in jail, and yet she did nothing about that. That's a story for another day. But let's just go on her record in terms of what she did in terms of putting people away for crimes, for drug related crimes, those kinds of things. Okay, fine. But that had nothing to do with government. You trying to tell me that her being a DA, an AG, Senate, a VP, did anything in governing? Now she's saying it was always Joe. She was never the border czar. She was never put anything in policy. You have everybody say that the vice president is just there, name only. They don't do much. They're just there to make sure, take the pulse of the president each and every single day. And that's about it. You can't have it both ways, Melba Toast. You can't have it both ways. Anyways, let's see what more he's going to bring out to try to caress the fact that she is just unbelievably the most qualified person ever to run for president. Let's see what Melba Toast has to say about that.
Numbers and historical comparisons, but this is the factual antidote to the falsehoods, misinformation, or possibly lies I showed you from Fox and MAGA. Not only does she have more experience than all of these other presidents during their first White House run as a nominee.
No, she doesn't.
But she doubles most of them. She's served in elected government positions for 21 years straight and counting, from those recent posts you see at the top, VP and Senate, to past executive positions like AG and DA.
But she
Another way
didn't
to say it, as
govern.
you look at this, Kamala Harris has more experience in her first run than Reagan and JFK combined in
Bullshit.
their same respective career position. These are
I just told you, Melba Toast. I just told you. She wasn't governing. Those are just positions. She's an employee. She had no government experience, no policies, didn't sign a check, front or back. Never did anything about business. Nothing. No government. No policies other than what happened into the ADA's office. All right? So don't try to pull this bullshit scenario that she had more experience than all these other people, okay? It just doesn't wash. And everybody knows it, Melba Toast. Come on now.
are facts, and they're easily obtainable. This isn't like we're going back to the 1800s and researching some Whig Tory library book. If anyone should be on defense over experience, it's the Republicans. It is telling that a person, in this case Kamala Harris, can literally be the most experienced among nominees in the modern era, as I'm showing you on the screen, and then still face political attacks and DC pundit conversations about whether she's experienced enough. Jimi Hendrix would not be okay with this.
Yes, he would.
As for politics, the recent Republican presidents versus Harris, Bush had 6 years as governor of Texas. Trump had none, as I mentioned, when he was in her position. Harris has the 21 years. And the point here is not only that the MAGA attacks are false, but that voters might want to compare how polls have spent their time. We have some quick flashbacks for you. A young Kennedy there. He spent his youth in public service in the military before running for office. Harris did public service working her way up in these DA offices before she ever tried to run one.
And remember, a lot of her work was not done vertical, it was done horizontal, maybe on her knees, but most of it was done horizontally.
Obama did pretty non-lucrative organizing work out of school. Harris was passing on high-paying private law jobs. Those choices in their early careers are something that people tend to want to look at as voters. And that brings us to another comparison which debunks some of the MAGA attacks. Harris spent her 30s working in that California government in a DA's office. This is before she ran for office. That would be less lucrative than the admittedly very telegenic Ronald Reagan, who you see there, before he...
And Ari probably fails to mention that she was running. She had absolutely no experience whatsoever to be in the ADA's office, but because, she was there with Big Willie, who was a very influential politician within Democratic circles in California, took her under his arm and took her under other places as well, where she notably had an affair with Big Willie and his Willie. And this is at the time when it was an affair with a married man, which then led to her ascension and why she is also known in the circles as Horizontal Harris. Anyways, I digress.
He turned to politics. So voters will weigh candidates' experience and their priorities. This was a time before the power and the fame were even on the table. Running for office, trying to get power, being, on national TV and in the debates and all that stuff, those aren't the only ways to serve. And so I just showed you the photos, which kind of gets you in the mind. You remember, oh, wow, JFK, yeah, he was out doing the military in World War II before Camelot and all the rest. But if you update those charts I did to include the public service that is not just elective office, and if you ask people around the country, a lot of folks value other types of public service than just running for office.
No, they don't. They don't give a damn.
The charts stack up even taller.
Oh, wow.
Kennedy and Reagan both had military service. We've color-coded that, so that adds to the prior public service, government service they had before becoming their party's nominee and running for office.
Wow.
Obama didn't have that kind of government service. His total would stay at 11 years. And then if you use that wider ambit,
wow,
Harris stacks even higher because you have to count her work as an employee, as an assistant DA, assistant prosecutor in 2 different DA's offices before ever running herself, plus the many other posts she's held before becoming the nominee. So you see her color coding and her total years, again, far higher, stacking.
Oh my God, she's unbelievable. She had 34 years. 34 years. Can you believe that? 34 years. She runs rings around everybody. Wow. That's like almost as much as Kennedy and Reagan and Obama combined. Heck, add Clinton into that as he was governor for, I think, 8 years in Arkansas? I mean, Kamala, is that accomplished? She's more accomplished than even Hillary Clinton, right? What would you have given for Hillary Clinton? Her 8 years as First Lady. Was she governing? Everything she touched didn't go to gold. Everything they touched burned away, disintegrated. Remember, she was put in charge of healthcare? What a fiasco, what a disaster that was for Hillary Clinton. People tend to forget. She doesn't want to remind you. But wow, wow, wow. Harris. Unbelievable. It's amazing that she hasn't been president before. Run for it. And what happened in 2019 when she ran? How many delegates did she get? None. Oh, by the way, how many delegates voted for her in 2024? Oh, none.
Stunting and flexing on these other past nominees at the same point in time, their first presidential run as a nominee. That's 13 extra years of government experience and builds her edge. You boil it all down, and what you see on your screen is the ultimate fact check to one of the biggest lies circulating about Kamala Harris, and one that people might repeat without knowing it's a lie. That's how disinformation works. You might hear a reasonable person say, I heard she wasn't experienced. I heard she wasn't qualified. I heard she
wasn't.
DEI. It's the opposite. She has this edge over the nominees in both parties, and it shows, and this is as she approaches her 60th birthday. She's served publicly in some kind of office for over 3 decades.
She's a DIE hire. She's dumb. She's incompetent. And she is absolutely exasperating. Really. She's a DIE hire. She was only hired because I think I think Biden even was fooled into thinking that she was black, which she doesn't have an ounce of black blood in her. She's Nigerian and Indian. I'm sorry, she's Jamaican and Indian. And that's Caribbean blood. Now, could there be? I don't know. We'd have to find out. Maybe does she have some black blood in her? Generational wise in the past? Who knows? But if you just look at her just up to her birth parents, then the answer is 0% black blood. She's not African American. She's not a black American. Is she a woman of color? Okay, fine. You want to play that game? Yes, she's a woman of color. A woman of Jamaican color? A woman of South Asian color? A woman South Indian color? And she plays the DIE every chance that she can get. And she was a DIE hire because she had absolutely no experience whatsoever. It's like all these students that are getting into Ivy League school, black students, that are being given 300 to 400 points more on their scores, deducting 200 to 400 points from Asian, Chinese students, Indian students, Jewish students. That's what happened here. She was just given more points from Biden to run as a vice president because he knew it might help with the women's vote. Anyways, we just wanted to debunk this, as Ari Melber was trying to say that he was putting this all together. What an unbelievable amount of research he did. I mean, he just painstakingly went through the governmental archives to bring this information to us. That 34 years is just absolutely incredible. That those 34 years actually mean somebody governed in a governmental position, governed. made decisions. And yes, she made some decisions as an ADA and a DA and a prosecutor. I'm not doubting that. But she was an employee of the government at that time, just as they're employees now as vice president. Hey, we're employing them, right? The president is an employee. We're the employer, the people, not the government. We're the employer. She worked for us. She didn't work for the government. They got to remember this. None of these people work for the government. They work for the people, because without us, without the people, there is no government. Anyways, folks, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your host. My name is Dr. Nasir. If you've been done so already, subscribe to our channel, like, share, and follow. Put your comments down below. Tell me, do you agree with Ari Melber toast? Or do you agree with me? Yours truly. I'll leave you with my final thought, which is, before that, check out our video links above and below. My final thought is always that when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.